Happy Friday, mathematicians. Today for your math workshop, you're going to need your multiple color highlighters, a glue stick, math notebook, and your blue resource folder that's inside of your anchor binder. Remember, don't take this out of your anchor binder, just have it available so you can open it up. On the left side today, you're going to be getting 2 pages out of the teach side, so take off your blue or your black clip. You are going to get the page that says page 24. And then the next page that we're going to need is out of order. So don't grab page 25, but very carefully find the page that says page 27. This is the page we're going to need today. Page 27 should say write which place to use. These are the 2 pages you're going to need today. The rest of the pages leave in a nice neat stack. If you need to take them out and just kind of restack them, then you can go ahead and put the clip back on to keep them for next week. On the right side, you're going to need the classwork that says compare and order numbers. Then go ahead and close your blue folder that should be inside of your anchor binder and put your anchor binder back in your basket. So today we have 2 sheets that we're going to be gluing in. So we're going to go ahead and open up our notebook, find yesterday's lesson on forms of numbers, to double check the pages. So it's on page 22 and 23. We're gonna flip the page. And because we already know that the next page is going to be 24, just double check that you're not grabbing more than 1 sheet, and page 25. So before we write in our table of contents, we're gonna go ahead and glue these in. So on page 24, this is our title of our lesson, compare and order numbers. Use your glue stick. Go ahead and make the frame on the outside edges. Then make sure that you do the crisscross. Turn it over, and then just make sure you're smoothed it out. Remember, once we're done with gluing, you might have to rewrite your number in case you accidentally glued on top of that number. Now this page, remember, this is the page that was out of order, so make sure that you've grabbed the correct one out of your folder. It should say page 27, and because this is the wrong page number, I'm going to scratch it out and then put a page 25. This example that belongs in this page should say, number 1, write which place to use when comparing the numbers. This is the correct page that you want out of your blue folder. Don't grab the one that said 25 originally. That is the wrong page. Go ahead and do the same with your glue stick. Put the X through the middle, turn it over, and then smooth it out. Remember, if you accidentally glued on top, go ahead and rewrite the number for the page number. Once you have your 2 pages glued in, then we're going to turn to our table of contents. And today we're going to be recording our next page, which is page 24. And the lesson focus is compare and order numbers. And remember, as you are working, if you need to pause the video to get yourself caught up so you can stay nice and organized, you need to make sure you do that, and then push play when you're ready to continue. So we have our date for Friday, which is 9-4-20, and we have our title. Then we're going to go ahead and turn back to today's lesson. Go ahead and use your highlighters. We're going to highlight the title to remember what we are focusing on with our lesson today, which is compare and order numbers. And this unit that we have started this week on place value is understanding our number sense and understanding the importance of knowing the place value that a number or a digit is in, and then understanding the worth that is associated with it. So we're going to fill in some of our closed notes at the top. So it says you can use the 2 words that are missing are place value. That's the name of our unit. We're in place value chart to line up, and the missing word is digit by place value. So some of the important information that we should see in this particular lesson are the words line up. And we see line up, that just tells me that I have to follow a very important step, which Mrs. Ling will always ask us to do, which is called stacking our numbers. And when we stack our numbers, we are lining up to show the same place value within numbers so we can easily compare and then order their values. The next part is going to be our first example. So we're looking at our example. It says 651,028 and 665,188 in the place value chart below. You are using a pencil because you will want to use this place value for your examples and erase and then be able to write again to be able to actually stack your numbers according to place values. So I'm going to go ahead and record. So the first number is 651,000. I look at my commas to show the break. I will not need for this first example my millions period. So I'm going to write 651,000. There's a 0 in that hundreds place because it says 28. Remember, we don't say the word and because that would show a decimal number. We just say 651,000. We say the period at the comma, 28. The next number value is 665,000. So we write 665. We say the name at the comma, 1,188. Remember that Mrs. Ling did not say the word and because that would show that it's a value that's in the decimal place and that's not this value for this number. Now, the trick for being able to compare our numbers is we always start in the greatest place value. So when they're lined up, we're able to make a quick comparison. So I'm going to put right above it an arrow to indicate this is my starting place. I always want to start in the greatest place value. When I'm able to start in the greatest place value, if they are the same digit, that tells me they're the same value. So then I can go ahead and cross them out to say, there is no way for me to make a comparison with these two. So I go next door to the next greatest. When I compare the digits that are in the next greatest place value, if they are a digit that is different from one another, I'm going to be asked to lasso that place value. That way I know that I can make a comparison to see which value is larger. When I look to see which place value is larger, I typically like to put a little star just because stars are my favorite and it helps me identify the larger or the value is greater in my second number. So make sure you remember that when we compare numbers, we start with the greatest place value. We compare the digits. If they are the same, we go to the next place value. If the next place value is different, we lasso those two numbers to make our first comparison. When we look at the bottom section right below the place value chart, go ahead and use a second highlighter color. And these are just going to be the steps that we just took care of in that first example. So when you start your classwork, you're going to be able to follow along and remember what were the steps that Mrs. Ling was going over. So I outlined with a highlighter color to say these are my important steps, but the third color is going to be where I highlight the actual step number. So step 1, I'm going to highlight and then I'm going to read it. So it said, start at the left, compare the digits in each place value position until the digits are different. So we started in the left, which is the greatest place value, and then we continued on until a place value had different digits. Step 2 said when you come to a set of digits that differ, we circle the higher number. So when we compare the two, you can do a final step of circling the larger value to indicate that this is the greater value. Mrs. Ling also puts a star there as a way that I can quickly identify it. Step 3, this one says and then we're making comparison, the 6 in the 10,000s place is, and then we're going to use our comparison words. So we're going to look at its greater. So this is supposed to be one blank, so we're going to write the word greater. So the 6 is greater than the digit, which is 5, in the 10,000s place. So we're making the comparison using our comparison vocabulary in order to show which value is the larger one. And then the final statement says, so 651,028, and then we have a comparison line, 665,188. So we want to be able to identify what is the correct symbol to show comparison. So we're going to write comparison symbols. and we're going to give ourselves some reminders. So when you write comparison symbols, when we have the arrow pointing towards the left, we also might have thought of this in a younger grade as an alligator mouth. So we think of an alligator mouth, and the opening is going to always be pointed towards the greater value. So we read our symbols like we read words in a book, from left to right. So if we're looking at the left and it's the smaller side, opening up to a larger, left side names it. So we say this is called the less than symbol. If the symbol is pointing in the opposite direction and we're reading the symbol like a book, left to right, the left side is the greater than or the opening. So we say that is greater than symbol. So in order for us to correctly identify which symbol is needed, we have to look at the two numbers that are given. And because we were able to identify it above with a star to show this is my larger valued number, the number that says 665,188 is going to have the opening of my comparison symbol open towards the larger number. So in our primary grade, you might have said the alligator is eating that second number that had the star. We're going to continue practicing with the same steps. So down below, it says to compare using the symbols less than, greater than, or we have a third symbol, which is equal to. So we're going to put that one in our list too. So an equal sign means the two values on opposite ends are equal to one another. So we can even put equal to. So when we look at the comparison, we're being asked to stack our values. If they've already provided you with a written version of both, you don't have to necessarily rewrite both unless you want to. You can always pull the number from the right side and stack it, meaning that you're going to place it identically underneath to show the values that are lining up. So 798,453 is then moved right underneath. I once again need to remember that I always start in the greatest place value. So I put an arrow to indicate where I'm starting my comparison. And if I compare both digits in the hundred thousands, I should see that they're both with the digit 7. So I can cross them out to say, well, there's no difference, so I need to move to the next one. The next place value in the 10,000s, we have a difference of an 8 and a 9. Because they're different digits, I'm going to go ahead and lasso to show that this is where I'm making my comparison. When we compare an 8 to a 9, 9 is a greater value. So I put a star to indicate second number is going to be greater. So when I have to write my symbol, that tells me that that symbol needs to have the opening showing the greater value towards the number that had the star originally. Moving to the next one, once again, I'm going to rewrite my number directly underneath, but visually I can already tell that there is a different amount of digits on my left number compared to the right number. So I need to pay close attention that I line up that 9 in the 10,000s place in the 10,000s place underneath. So I'm going to be very careful when I rewrite my number. So 98,653. If I notice that visually there are two different numbers that have different amount of digits, the one that has the greater amount of digits, I don't even need to make a comparison because it already has more digits that indicate that is the larger number. So I can go ahead and write the comparison symbol to show that that left side is greater than the right number. The last example in this section is then showing us an expanded form compared to an expanded form. So we have to be very careful to remember the steps. We always will start with the greatest value first. So on the left side, the greatest value is 600,000. The right side is 600,000. So I visually cross them out to say I have compared and they're exactly the same. I move to the next value in the expanded form. We have 30,000 compared to 40,000. When I make the comparison of our two values, 40,000 is larger than 30,000. So I'm going to circle to show that this is where I am finding the difference. And I found, so I'm putting my star, the number on the right is greater. You might look visually and say, well, the number on the left has more digits that have value, but it's important to realize it doesn't matter how many digit values we have, it matters the value of the digits actually presented. So we're going to put our comparison symbol of less than because the right side is greater. The last part on this side is going to be ordering. So when we order, we have to figure out how to order these from least to greatest. So when we think least to greatest, I always put on my paper the letter that they want and in the order that they're asking. So in this case, least to greatest means L pointing to G. So I always want to make sure I have the values the same. So with your numbers, you're going to follow the same steps. You're going to rewrite those numbers, stacking them so they compare in the right place values. So go ahead and rewrite these. And these you can write a little bit bigger because you have a little bit of space on the bottom of your page. I always like to write my numbers separately on a piece of paper because I like to spread out my work. And having an additional piece of work on different paper is completely okay. I always encourage my students to have separate paper so they can use as much room as they need to and they never have to squish things in. So when looking at these three numbers, we start by the same place value. So we put an arrow above to indicate the greatest place value to make the comparison. If they're the same digit, we cross them out to say there's no difference there. We go to the next place value. They're all with a digit 4. So once again, I cross them out. Moving to the hundreds place, I can already see that there is a difference. And because I'm looking for smallest to largest, I see that there is only one number that is smaller than the other two. So that tells me that this is going to be my first number because it's already going to be smaller than the other two. So I can stop comparing that first number. So the first number is going to be 34,710, and then I put a semicolon to separate, because if I just put a comma to separate, then it looks like one gigantic number that I'm about to create. So now that this is number 1, I'm going to compare the other two. So once again, the hundreds place were the same, so I cross them out, move to the tens place. The tens place is both the same, so I cross them out, and I move to the ones. The ones place is different, which tells me the 6 is going to be larger than the 1, but my focus was finding the smallest. So the last number is actually going to be the second smallest number, which means that middle number is the greatest. So if you provide yourself with an organized workspace, you will be able to correctly identify the order, and then that helps you with rewriting the answer. So the second number was the 34,851, semicolon, and then the last one is the middle number, 34,856. Go ahead and pause your video, and then you're going to go ahead and double check your answers once you have tried them on your own. For your second problem, you should have started by rewriting the three numbers given and making sure that you're stacking in the correct place value. When you're looking at the values given, you should be able to visually see, based on your stacking, that the last number has more digits, which then means it's the greater value. So because we're looking for least to greatest, I'm going to automatically put a number 3 next to the last number to indicate that is the largest value. So I can even go ahead and rewrite it up in my answer spot in that last location. Then I'm going to cross it out just visually so it can be eliminated. Now I'm going to focus on the first two. So they're both in the thousands place, so I'm going to cross it out. Moving to the hundreds place, they both have no value in the hundreds. Then I move to the tens place. This is where they differ, and I'm looking for the smaller of the two numbers. So the 0 is smaller than the 2, so I'm going to say that is actually going to be my first number, which means the top number is going to be my second number. So when I rewrite it in my actual answer line, I'm going to start with the smallest number, which is 6,004, semicolon, and then the middle number is going to be 6,024, and we already wrote the greater number. Go ahead and try your third problem, and then push play on the video. So now you should have, with your third problem, stacked your values to indicate that they're all lined up according to place value, and we start with the greatest place value. They're all with the same digits, so we cross them out to indicate there is no comparison. In the hundreds place, they all have the same digits, so we cross them out. There's no comparison. And then we move to the tens place. We see that 2 of the numbers have the same value and a third one is different. So we remember again to look back at the direction says to look for least to greatest. So the one that is different is going to be the smallest. So I'm saying out to the side that I'm marking it with the number 1 to say this is my smallest number, and I'm crossing it out to say I've used it. Because the other 2 are the same, I'm crossing out the tens place and moving to the ones place to make the last comparison. The top number has a value of 0 compared to the greater value of 5. So the 0 is going to be the second number, which means the last one is going to be my greater value. So now when I write my numbers in my answer line, I can write the correct number order. So the first one should be 3,405, semicolon. The second one is 3,450, semicolon. And then the last one is 3,455. Remember, each time Mrs. Ling is saying the name of the number, I am being very careful not to say the word and. On the right side today is going to be some additional problems. So we have an example, practice, and a space for your reflection today. So looking up at the example, it says to write which place to use when comparing the numbers. So when we think of the word place, that tells me I want to know what the actual word of the place is. So these are going to be the words. So they're really talking about place value. And remember that you have a page in your notebook that you can look back at to know how to spell each of the place values correctly. So when we look at the first example, it's asking us to say what name do we start our comparison. Well, we know that we always start looking at the greatest place value, but that's not where we're actually doing any comparison because they're the same. So I'm going to cross them out to just say, well, that one doesn't matter. Then I look at the next place value. This is where I would lasso to make a comparison. Because I lassoed, I'm going to write the name of the place value. So this is in our middle position in the thousands period. So we indicate that this is called 10,000s. So 10,000s. Moving to the next one, once again, we point to the largest value to say this is where our eyes are visually checking. Because they're the same digit, we cross them out. Then we look in the hundreds place. Hundreds place is the same digit, cross them out, move to the next digit. Same one in the place value. So then we're at the last place value. So this time we are circling and we're saying this is where our comparison is. So it's our last or smallest place value, and this is our ones place. The last one, we're once again pointing to the greatest place value to say this is where my eyes are visually checking. So the 10,000s place, same digit, cross it out. Next one, thousands place, same digit, cross them out. We're in the next place value. They're different digits, so I'm lassoing them to indicate this is where I'm making the comparison, and then I need to write the name of the place value. So the name of the place value is in the greatest position in the ones period, and that is called the hundreds place. So I'm writing the word hundreds. So remember, I need to make sure that I'm writing this in words, but using the correct spelling, and the spelling for the place values are on a previous lesson. The last one we're going to do together today is our last example. Celia bought 3 bags of 4 hamburger buns. So we have been talking about the importance of boxing and circling. So go ahead and make sure you're looking at this first. The next part says, and 3 bags of 8 hot dog buns. So we have hamburger buns and hot dog buns. How many hamburger and hot dog buns did Celia buy? So we underline the question to know what we need to solve to figure out. And which did she have more of? So there's 2 questions that we need to solve to find the answer of. So the first thing we're going to do is solve for how many hamburger buns there are. So out to the side, I'm going to just abbreviate hamburger to say if I have 3 bags of 4, That means I'm multiplying the factors of 3 times 4 to get to a product. Remember, this is one of our fact family problems, so we should be able to say there are 12 hamburger buns. Looking at the next part says 3 bags of 8 hot dogs, so I'm going to just abbreviate to put hot dog. So 3 bags of 8, that's a 3 times 8. When I multiply, I should get my product of 24. Now I can use the information for answering the question. How many hamburger and hot dog buns did Celia buy? So I need to then add the 2 values. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 1 plus 2 is 3. So I need to know that there's 36 buns. So we can put 36 buns because they're both buns. And then the last part said, which did she have more of? So we compare the 12 hamburger to the 24 hot dog, and then we put the semicolon to show the separation of answers, and we say hot dog buns. So today for your classwork, you're going to be looking at problems 3 and 4. Read the questions carefully, solve and show your answers in your practice section. And then you are today going to write your first reflection. The reflection should be using your sentence stems that you can find at the beginning of your notebook. Remember, the ones that I like to use are the sequential, where you might start with the word first. So I'm going to start with the first sentence for you, but I want you to finish the steps and how we compare and order numbers. So I'm going to write the word first, making sure I'm indenting. So first, we stack our numbers, making sure to put them in the correct value spot. So this is only your first sentence. You are expected to write at least 2 to 3 more steps to show that you understand how to compare our numbers. So remember, this is your first sentence. You have to write 2 to 3 more sentences to show that you have finished. So your job today is to finish questions 3 and 4 and write 2 to 3 more sentences in your reflection. And then you have your practice classwork sheet. So take your sheet out and write classwork. And at the top, you are going to be solving for the even numbers. So then you can go ahead and circle. We're going to complete numbers 2, 4, 6, and 8. Remember that you must stack your numbers. So we're going to write that as a reminder. Stack numbers. So you're moving your second number to be directly underneath, showing that they have the same values. The next section says to order from least to greatest. So we're solving numbers 10 and 12. So remember, that's least to greatest. So stack your numbers to the side, put your number for their order, and then rewrite them on the answer line. If you need to use an additional piece of paper to spread out your numbers, you may. The bottom section is your word problem. So you're going to solve number 14, paying close attention that it says, what is the order of months? So remember, you're telling me the names of the months in order from greatest to least. So go ahead and write G to L. But remember, the key here is to name the months in order. When you turn your paper over, you're going to continue working on number 2 at the top. It says, which of the following lists of numbers is in order from greatest to least? So go ahead and write G to L so we know which values. Then you're going to be working on number 4. It's asking to find the perimeter. The perimeter formula is formula for rectangles is adding the side plus the side plus the side plus the side. And then number 6 is something that you should know how to do because this is from yesterday's lesson on expanded form. So remember, today you are going to finish up your notebook work, solving number 3 and 4, writing an additional 2 to 3 sentences, take a picture of both sides, and then submit it, and then solving for your even problems on the front and back of your classwork.